Hello.
Howdy. And hello to the dude with the mouthwash behind you.
Yeah,
Um,
he just left.
Oral hygiene is important. It's, if,
hmm
if the brain is the second gut, or I'm sorry, if the gut is the second brain, then I
Brain.
assume that that's, that's where you put your fuel. So gotta kill the funk, I guess. But not kill the funk because you need funk. We need funk in our lives.
hmm
All
How are
right.
you doing today?
I'm great, ladies, gents, others, those at home, at work, shamming. And if you're at work getting paid to hang out and listen to this podcast, thank you very much. Way to stick it to the man or woman or other, whatever. Stick it to the person in charge. We're joined with Scary Jeri. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Having a good day.
Excellent. How did it start?
I woke up, I did some schoolwork, and I took a shower, and now I'm talking to you.
Awesome. All good things. Again, hygiene, hygiene, hygiene.
hmm
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to be like Scary Jeri, but it's one thing to be like Scary Jeri who smells terrible.
Yeah, no, that's not me.
Good, good. Because hygiene's important. Um, so where to start? Who are you?
I am Scary Jerry. I'm an artist slash producer slash musician slash advocate. I make lots of music. I love writing, playing instruments, things of that nature.
Okay, so that's established the who and the what. When did you start making music?
I was around 10 years old.
What inspired you?
Honestly, I have no idea. My dad said I've just kind of been a performer since I was 3 years old. Like, he knew I was going to grow up to do something that was around like the area of performing. Um, if I had to say what inspired me, I remember listening to The Killers and Green Day when I was like 10 years old and thinking, I am going to learn how to play the guitar. And so I ended up learning how to play the guitar.
What was it about the guitar that spoke to you as an instrument?
I especially loved the sound of electric guitars, just the heavy distortion and like the power behind it. It's just something about that spoke to me. I just love the sound.
Okay. Um, so when did you start producing your own music?
2018, I believe, is when I started, so not that long ago.
We're gonna bounce around all over because there's a lot of questions for you. Do you remember some of your early songs and what they were about?
Yeah, some of the first songs I wrote was just stuff that I wrote on guitar when I was probably like 12 years old. Like silly love songs and songs about like how I felt because I've struggled with mental illness since I was really young. So I even wrote songs about that when I was super young, but I didn't really know what I was writing about. I was just writing my feelings.
When it comes to like writing your feelings, like how do you decide what to share?
I'm pretty open about what I share. I don't really hold much back when it comes to music. I feel like music's the one thing where I should be able to be as open and honest about myself and how I feel. So I I write exactly what I want to.
One of the benefits of being an independent artist. Um,
Yeah.
again, bouncing around software wise for production, what do you use?
I use Logic Pro X mostly, but I have used Ableton Live a few times.
Now, one of your tracks on your SoundCloud page was an iPhone demo. Did you record that on your iPhone?
I did with the GarageBand app on my iPhone.
How was that experience? I mean, you're not the first person who's recorded a song on their iPhone, but yours definitely didn't sound like it was recorded on an iPhone. Can you walk me
Really?
through? Really, it sounded as lo-fi as it was supposed to sound. Like it sounded like it
Mm.
was supposed to sound, if that makes sense. Not everything has to be super dialed in with a $3,000 an hour engineer. Like
I
Sometimes it
agree.
sounds the way it's supposed to sound because that's the way it's supposed to sound. And there's a long history of Anchorage producers, guys like Jazz Soon, who just made the beat sound the way it was supposed to sound because that's the way it's supposed to sound. So it sounds gnarly. It sounds
Mm.
it sounds a little bit rough because it's supposed to sound that way.
Yeah. I I don't always like having super high quality productions. Sometimes I really do just enjoy recording a song like at the piano with my phone. Because it's just really raw. I kind of like the rawness behind it. But yeah, I just basically I went into the GarageBand app on my phone and I pressed record and I played the whole song through. And then after I was done, I added a little bit of reverb through the app and I think some compression, and that was about it. And I just exported.
Well, it was rad. I enjoyed. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
So how do you decide what songs to share? Like it just hits you a certain way, or do you just I don't know. How do you work?
I'm very like spur of the moment when the creativity hits. Sometimes I'll sit down and try to record something, but half of the time that just doesn't work for me. Like it works sometimes, but most of the time, like I have to be in a specific mood, like in a creative mood, inspired. And that's when I'll sit down, whether it's like at the piano or at my computer to make a beat. But yeah, it's when the creativity hits is normally when that happens.
Do you have any tools or any tricks that you use to kind of flip the creativity switch, or is it just sort of like the muse comes and goes as she wishes?
Sometimes it's both. I like to listen to artists that are inspiring me at the moment. If I do want to flip it on, I'll put on some music that is currently inspiring me and then just see where it takes me.
Over the last couple of years, can you talk about some of the artists that have inspired you?
Local artists that I've been really inspired by St. Dion, Poetic Kellen, or Christopher Kellen. Um, Artists that are not local that I really, really enjoy are Norwegian artists. I love Aurora, Wardruna, and this band called Kalandra.
Why Norwegian artists?
They just have really interesting music. I love the way that it sounds. It's very it's powerful in a way that just seems more natural. It's hard to explain. They just have really interesting music that's very like attached to their culture and their roots, and I think that's really important in an artist is to have that like connection. Like for Wardruna, for example, they use a lot of like really really old instruments that don't really get used a lot other than like in Scandinavian uh like artists and stuff, like their native instruments that their like ancestors used to use.
Do you think that that has to do with geography and climate? I mean, we're very similar to being in Alaska. You know, we have a lot of the same weather patterns.
Yeah,
Um,
I definitely have noticed that I'm very inspired by nature and so are they, and the way that their lands looks almost like Alaska. It's very similar weather, similar forests, and just I feel very connected to nature, and Norwegian music is very connected to like nature too.
okay. Um, uh, no wrong answers. I mean, like I get into like German hip hop. Like that's kind of what speaks to me. I understand the language, and so when you have producers that come from all over the world, if you have a producer that was born in Turkey or his parents are from Turkey, like his musical background are going to be like those instruments, and those are the things that he's going to bring with him. There are artists, German producers born in Iran, guys like Azad, who brought Iranian music over and sort of injected it into rap, and the two things very much go together because the way the use of strings, the vocal inflections and tones, and it just it works well in that environment. So yeah, there's um, some shit just speaks to you in a way that nothing else is supposed to.
Yeah.
Um, so aside from like listening to other artists, I mean, do you other things? Do you go for a walk? Do you go for a drive? Do you, like, I don't know, you eat a turkey sandwich or something? I mean, like, are there other things that you do to sort of help get that going so you don't find yourself in like a writer's rut?
Um, I don't really ever find myself in like having writer's block. That's just not something that happens to me. So I don't really have to I don't really need to like have other ways to get my creativity flowing. Um it's really just mostly I just listen to other artists that inspire me, or I'll take inspiration from things like my day, whatever it is I'm going through, like what's giving me the most anxiety. Maybe I might use that as a way to channel emotions and get creativity flowing. But for the most part, for example, I'm really, really good at coming up with melodies. So I can hear a track and I can come up with like a hook immediately. That's just something I've always been able to do. It's like my pride is that I can just come up with hooks like right there on the spot.
Okay.
It's just a gift, I guess.
How therapeutic is it therapeutic, or is it frustrating doing the nuts and bolts of the production, the mixing, the listening to a drum for the 10,000th time, trying to figure out whether or not you want to add a reverb to it? Do you find that that's therapeutic, or do you find that that's a pain in the neck, or takes away from the creative process?
Both. I personally love the mixing mastering aspect of producing music. That's like my favorite part is making everything sound like cohesive, or maybe I want to put something more towards the left ear or to the right ear, like create that like sound space. I love doing stuff like that, but every now and then when you're trying to perfect a track and you've listened to it over and over and over again, it can get frustrating because sometimes you'll not be hearing the things that you need to be hearing to fix, and then other times you'll be focused too much on something else, or me personally. So I tend to like to take breaks in between. Like it takes me a long time to work on one track because I like to take my time with it, just because I don't want to tire out my ears. And so I'll work on something, take a pretty long break, come back to it, work on it more. But then other times I'll get a track done in like 2 hours. It really just depends. I don't have like a set way of doing things. It's very spur of the moment how I feel things should go as I'm doing it. So sometimes I take my time, other times I'm super quick with it. But yeah.
As far as producers, are there any specific producers that stick out to you as an inspiration or motivational?
Uh yeah, Phineas. I love the way Phineas produces like all of Billie Eilish's tracks. He produces them and they're very simple, but they're not too simple. It's a really fine balance and I enjoy that. I also really love Black. He produces a lot of his music too, and I love the way his music sounds. It's amazing. So Phineas, Black, and I don't know who produces the Weekend stuff, but I like a lot of the Weekend's tracks too. So whoever does production for him, I also really enjoy.
Okay. All right. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Phineas is her brother.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.